Spoilers for the Gen V Season 2 finale. So Gen V Season 2 has wrapped up the story of Cypher and the latest chapter for the students of Godolkin University. And for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. Perfect might be an overstatement, but the meat of the finale was plenty juicy. We learned more about how Thomas Godolkin became Cypher, and even got some characterization for Doug, the victim who'd been posing as him for the last 3 decades. I also enjoyed the final battle where Marie and her friends were pitted against the primary antagonist. I thought it made good use of some core heroes' powers while also offering some of that classic gross-out, pushing the limits humor the boys franchise is known for. But there was also something about this finale that just felt missing. Not only that, but it also gave me the impression that the boys is becoming the very superhero story it originally sought to parody. Not an execution per se, as there's plenty of unique presentation and different themes that makes this stand out from your typical fare at Marvel and DC, but it does feel like it's becoming the kind of franchise antithetical to its original purpose, but one that isn't comfortable with saying that yes, it has moved in that direction. This isn't going to be a play-by-play of the finale, more just a free flow of thoughts about how the season ended and what it means for the spin-off moving forward. In my last video, I talked about how the boys in Gen V are intrinsically linked to one another, that the shows do this passing of the baton of sorts, where each new season leads into the next, and how I wasn't too big a fan of it because of how it alienated people who are only watching the boys. To expand on this, I should note that I'm a fan of shared universes, superhero or otherwise. I'm the kind of person who, when he was up to date with the MCU, watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just in case there were important tie-ins to Infinity War and Endgame. And I'm a big fan of ongoing shared worlds, like the Immortal Universe on AMC and the Conjuring franchise. I'm cool with expanded universes and having to watch multiple shows to understand the larger narrative of a franchise. But The Boys is different for 2 reasons. The first, and honestly less important one, is that the franchise is starting to become structured like the superhero media it was originally poking fun at. We have a new prequel in Vought Rising coming soon, alongside a sequel with The Boys Mexico. It seems antithetical to the series parodying never-ending superhero universes for it to become well, a never-ending superhero universe. Kind of feels like it opens the show to becoming the butt of jokes instead of the one making the jokes. But the biggest problem has to be the way the main series showrunner and executive producer, Eric Kripke, describes how the 2 shows are linked. Kripke has stated, on multiple occasions, that The Boys and Gen V can be watched separately. But based on the presentation of Gen V, especially in the Season 2 finale, I just don't think that's the case. I think it's wishful thinking, if anything, that the average viewer will fully understand what's going on without having seen both shows. As covered in my previous video, there's just not enough context delivered in each series individually to justify being able to separate them. I think, to some extent, this is fine, but at the same time, I fear it's going to take some important things away from The Boys, especially after the way Gen V Season 2 ended. First off, the majority of Gen V Season 2's finale was good. Not anything to write home about, but it was a serviceable conclusion to the mental battle between Marie and Godolkin the previous 7 episodes had been building to. I do wish we got more with Doug, who seemed like a really nice guy that didn't deserve to get slashed in the chest by Black Noir, but I did like how they handled the aftermath of the twist alongside the bigger story at play. Believe it or not, despite not being a huge fan of Sage and the boys, I liked her a lot more in Gen V. Her plan here seemed more methodical, even if I had to suspend my belief that everything leading up to Marie healing Godolkin was orchestrated by her. The best part about her appearance was the lack of control she had once Thomas decided he needed to become more powerful so he could control both Marie and Homelander. I also found her plans going wrong believable because the only judge of character she had for Godolkin was through his mind puppets. There was no way to fully comprehend what he was going to do, and it made her feel more realistically fallible in the process. And even though he doesn't appear, the looming threat of Homelander felt well established. All it took was one phone call to make it clear he's not happy with the mental manipulator publicly announcing himself to the world. I also liked the final battle. The build-up was a little unnecessary, like Marie questioning her strength just because Godolkin was using her, even though that doesn't really make sense because she literally brought her sister back to life. Of course she's super powerful. But by the time everyone was together and fighting Cypher, things felt like they were picking up nicely. Shout out to Black Hole for shoving half the cast in his magical butthole so they could sneak in. When Godolkin got hold of Marie, I knew she was probably going to get freed by Polarity, since it was clear Sage let him out so he could bring their plan to an end. I also liked the karmic justice of Marie exploding half of Godolkin's body, and the fact it was for Andre really was the cherry on top. Definitely felt like a double meaning, that not only was killing Godolkin for Andre in the show, but the whole season was for Chance Perdomo, who died before season 2 was filmed. Powerful moment, and I thought it was a great send-off for the season's main antagonist. But then we come to the final scene, and this is where my problems with season 2 really arise. While parked on the edge of the road and planning their next moves, Marie and her friends are approached by Starlight, or Annie now, who asks if they want to join a resistance against Homelander and Vought. A-Train also shows up last minute, which establishes how intrinsic this resistance idea is going to be for The Boys Season 5. Which also means Marie and her friends will, inevitably, be part of it. I think if this were any other shared universe, it would make sense. After all, passing the torch from one project to the next is an important step to every other multimedia superhero narrative out there. But outside of the show, there seems to be this insistence that The Boys and Gen V aren't as connected as they are. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter about Gen V's finale, Kripke confirmed that Marie and her friends will show up in The Boys Season 5, that while the focus will be on the series' original characters, they'll provide some important assistance to the final fight. However, in the same breath, he insists that the presentation doesn't mean you need to watch Gen V to watch The Boys, and vice versa. First off, watching Gen V without The Boys just doesn't make any sense. It's a spin-off, so if you're not watching the original show alongside it, you're going to be lost half the time. Especially in Season 2, when nearly every member of the Seven makes a cameo, and where a cameo happens in nearly every episode. As for The Boys, Season 4's virus storyline and the inclusion of Sam and Kate already proved Gen V is necessary. Neither of these stories are nearly as strong without the spin-off, with crucial context feeling like it's missing. The same will apply to The Boys Season 5 when Marie and her friends do show up. For one, there will need to be a reckoning between Frenchie and Kimiko and Sam and Kate, considering they kidnapped the pair at the end of Season 4. But Sam and Kate have since been reformed, something that'll probably give The Boys viewers some whiplash. Without Gen V, Marie is also going to be presented pretty differently. With the context of the spin-off, her powers come from Project Odessa, with an entire season built around how she had to train to unlock her full potential. But, with just the context of The Boys Season 5, she becomes a deus ex machina, a suddenly powerful ally who can, and very well might, take down Homelander. Kripke has also confirmed there are plans for the Gen V characters to continue their story into a possible Season 3, but with the Resistance likely being a big part of The Boys Season 5, it means Gen V's heroes are going to be in a wildly different place from the end of Season 2, going into the start of Season 3. Again, something confusing that's not going to make sense to anyone not watching The Boys. I think, at the end of the day, I just want The Boys franchise to be more honest with itself. I can't speak to why Kripke feels the need to make it sound like The Boys and Gen V can be watched on their own when that really isn't the case, but it seems like the creator is trying to make the shows sound like they're different from every other shared universe, that everything can stand on its own, even though the presentation indicates the opposite. I think he knows people are sick of superhero universes that feel like homework and doesn't want The Boys to feel that way either. Except, that's exactly what it is. You do need to watch Gen V to fully understand later seasons of The Boys, just like how the events of Gen V don't make sense without the context of the original show. Did this final moment ruin Gen V Season 2 for me? Not really, no. It was a little irksome because I know Season 3, if it does happen, won't have anything to do with the Super Resistance. I also know if Season 3 doesn't happen, their cameos in The Boys Season 5 are going to be their big send-off. My feelings are in a wishy-washy middle ground, because while I liked how the series handled the end of its bigger story, I wasn't really a fan of Marie and her friends basically getting recruited for The Boys Season 5. It's a double-edged sword, really. I don't want the Gen V cast hogging the spotlight in the main show's final episodes, but I also don't want the buildup of Season 2 going to waste. Kripke needs to establish a careful balancing act for the final season of The Boys if he wants to get its presentation right. Can he do it? I honestly don't know. If everything up to this point is any indication, it's gonna be bumpy. But I do hope that The Boys Season 5 delivers an ending worthy of the series and of this chapter of the franchise. Gen V Season 2's final episode was decent. It was a good send-off to Godolkin while laying the groundwork for the next chapter of the group's journey in The Boys universe. And even though I'm not all that positive about how their appearances in The Boys Season 5 will play out, I do hope the show does its best to balance a precarious vision of the franchise that doesn't really line up with its reality. But this won't be my last video on The Boys. I've got some stuff I want to say about its two upcoming spin-offs, Vought Rising, and The Boys Mexico in the coming weeks. I'll also be doing more videos on the franchise whenever new shows come out, including The Boys Season 5. If you'd like to see more, consider subscribing and tapping the bell for notifications. This has been Zeno, and I'll see you again in the space between spaces.